All right, Entree Architect community, it's 4 p.m. Eastern, which means it's time for the Entree Architect Context and Clarity live conversation for Thursday, February 16th, 2023. Thanks for joining us today. When you get here, say hi. Let us know that you're here. Let us know where here is for you. Where are you joining this conversation from? And if we've never met before, my name is Jeff. I'm in Indianapolis, and I come here every weekday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern for one reason, so that we can find clarity around the things that matter most to you, the architect. Doesn't matter if you're the employee of a firm or you own your own firm. Maybe you circled a date on the calendar. You said, hey, 2023 is my year and I'm on the runway to starting my own thing. Or maybe you have had your own thing for 3 months or 3 years or 30 years, and you're starting to rethink or reimagine what that firm could or maybe even should be. All of the topics that we cover, one topic every day, they all fall under the broad umbrella of the business of architecture, and they're all the need to know topics for the success of entrepreneur architects just like you. So thanks for joining us today. Say hi when you get here. As usual, for these Context and Clarity live conversations, I am joined by Katharine MacPhail. Hi, Katharine.
Hello, Jeff. How are you doing?
I am doing just fine today.
I
Storms are
won't.
blowing through. I
Yeah, I
think the
won't
power
pull your
still
plug
holds
today
out.
and strong arm my way into power like I did last week.
If you missed it last week, Katharine kicked the plug out. I went away and she carried on the conversation with the CEO of the American Institute of Architects. So
That's right.
thank you for carrying on without me.
Oh. Yeah. Well, I would say anytime, Jeff, but why don't you just stick around? That would be nice.
I'll give it a shot. Yeah, I sulked in the dark, surrounded
Mm.
by my 3 dogs for a couple of hours until the power came back on, and I heard
Well,
that you had a really great conversation.
I'll leave that to posterity to decide if it was great or not.
All right, fair enough. I see. So I was laughing as the countdown timer was going. I was
Oh,
laughing
why
to
were you
myself.
laughing? You did. I
Well,
saw you laughing.
yeah, Christian says he said I'm here in YouTube, which he's the first on the screen, which officially means he's the first in the room. So he's the winner of today's John Kinney Memorial Crocheted Bathtub Award. And so
Mm.
Christian says here in YouTube, and then he says here in Facebook. So he's joined from two different platforms at the same time. So I don't know if he's angling for two crocheted bathtubs or what exactly is going on there. But Christian,
Mm.
you get the John Kinney Memorial Crocheted Bathtub Award today. Congratulations. Thanks for joining us from Ithaca, New York. Glad that you are here. Andy Roll says, hi, everyone. Been a while. Glad to be back. Andy's over in the Cincinnati, Dayton area. Erica, welcome back from New Jersey. Chris Novelli from Massachusetts. Mark R. LePage, not to be confused with other Mark LePages or
Mhm.
LePages for that matter. He's
Mm.
joining us today from Waxhaw, North Carolina. And let's see, you've got people commenting on Christian's twofer there. Jessica, welcome back from Los Angeles. She says we're almost to Friday. We are almost to Friday indeed. Glad you're joining us from LA today, Jessica. And then Jessica Rogers. We have the oh wow! If Janine's name was Jessica, we'd have the trifecta of Jessicas. But we have Jessica Christensen from Los Angeles, Jessica Rogers from Miami, and then Janine from Arizona. Glad you're all joining us today. And if you are out there right now and you're just commenting away and you go, why are my comments not showing up on the screen like Chris Novelli's or like Janine's or Jessica's or Jessica's? It's because you're in a closed Facebook group, a private Facebook group, I guess is what they call it. And there are rules. There are rules.
Mm.
Facebook won't allow your name, your likeness, your comments out unless you give permission. So if you're commenting away, they're not showing up, open a separate browser window, type in the URL that's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen right now, chat.restream.io/FB, like Facebook. And a couple of clicks later, you'll give Facebook permission to talk with Restream, which is the platform that we have here. And that will solve every single one of your problems. So chat.restream.io/FB. Do you think they bought it? They'll solve all of your problems.
Well, I always think it will, and I think it's just a mindset thing anyway. So if you think it's going to solve all of your problems, it's more likely to.
Whew, magic, just like that.
Magic.
Uh, Yeah, Chad says, let's see if Restream is working. It is, Chad. Welcome back from the ATL. Glad you're joining us today as well. And Daryl, he's over on LinkedIn. Hi, Daryl. Welcome back. Let's see. All right, we've got a great guest lined up for today. This is a guest that has a focus that is of my own heart, and so the danger here is that I just geek out on the whole thing and have blinders on, and just jump 2 feet, all 2 feet first all the way into this. And it's Catherine's job to make sure that she keeps this conversation in going in the direction that you want it to go. So we're going to bring our guest in because I'm going to be honest with you, it's almost the end of the month, so we're running out. We're slightly short. We've got the green room well stocked, but not as stocked as one might like. It's full of Reese cups, but
That's not a bad thing.
it is definitely not a bad thing. It's definitely
Yeah.
not a bad thing, but there's a limit. So I want to get to our guests before they're all gone, because it would seem improper if the guest ran out. Ray Brown, good morning from Melbourne. Glad you're joining us from Australia, Ray. Great to see you.
Hi, Ray.
Thanks for the thumbs up there. Love it. Jessica wants to know if the Reese's are frozen or room temp. I'm going with frozen. What's your preference?
Room temp.
Oh, come on. All
They
right.
don't taste like anything if they're frozen. That is my personal feeling that frozen
Okay.
chocolates, not where it's
All
at.
right. All right, Jessica, we're going to ask our guest. That'll be that's the most important question, obviously, at this point. So we'll ask our guests what they feel. But Jessica, what about you? Frozen or room temp? It's an important question.
I haven't had a troll in a while. Just got one. I
Yeah,
was
I
off
love
my
it.
game. I wasn't even waiting. That means
Yeah.
we're making it big again, Jeff.
It is. Once we know when we get a troll that we've made it. We're back on top, baby. Here we are.
Yeah. Here we are. Feels good.
It does feel good. Jessica says frozen. All right. So that's 2 frozen to 1 room temp. We're going to see what our guest has to say.
Okay.
Our guest today is an architect, a community builder, a serial learner, and a tactician. He's a product manager focused on business development at Monograph and the creator of Tyler Tactics. Tyler Suomala, welcome to Context and Clarity Live.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. That was an epic introduction, like everything that happened before that. And I have so many questions. I need to know what's going on with this toilet. It's
a bathtub.
gonna bother me if I
not a
don't
toilet.
understand.
Well, Erica suggested that we gave him both a toilet and a bathtub because he came in on two different, rather than 2 bathtubs. Well, why don't you tell Tyler what the bathtub's all about?
All right. So the bathtub, what's it all about? My wife's grandma lived to almost 105 years old, and her name was Mimi, or that's what our son dubbed her when he was old enough to talk. And she had a one-liner for everything, right?
And a snarky one-liner.
A snarky one-liner for everything. Sure. And so when a kid or a grandkid or a great-grandkid, by the time ours came along, would be celebrating something that was, it was important to them, but possibly a little bit insignificant, she would say, "Oh, that's great. Congratulations. You win a crocheted bathtub." So being the first in the room on Context and Clarity became a competition very early on. We're almost 3 years into this now. But it became a competition very early on. So started giving away the Crocheted Bathtub Award. And the person that won it the most early on was John Kenny, a good friend of the community, of the show. And unfortunately, John passed away
a year ago, I think.
A year ago, a little over a year ago now. And so now it's named in honor of John Kenny. So it's the John Kenny Memorial Crocheted Bathtub Award.
That is incredible.
It is.
You should. There's never been a bad story to begin with. But what was it, like my wife's grandmother's grandfather named Mimi that was 105 years old.
Yeah.
It's a great start. It can't be a bad ending after that.
No, it cannot be.
That's a backstory on that.
Yeah, sure is. All right, so Tyler, Reese cups, frozen or room temp?
Yeah. Well, for context, I already told Jeff and Catherine that this is a terrible way to start off an interview because I'm just
now you're just resentful
now. Yeah. That there's not actually. They asked me what my favorite candy was before we jumped in, and I was excited thinking I was going to get to like go to my front door and see it arrive.
I know. We should DoorDash some of the favorite candy.
At least that'd be the way to do it. Yeah, it would be. I'm not biased. I'll eat either frozen or I'll even eat it melted. I don't even care. Yeah,
it's harder to eat it melted. Then you have to kind of lick it off the brown paper.
You do lick it off, but you got to work for it. You got to work for it.
It's the journey. It's all about the journey.
There it is.
Look, I don't mean to belabor this point, but someone did mention mixing them up with Rice Krispies. Do people actually add the whole thing to Rice Krispies, or are we just talking chocolate? That's Andy. What do you mean?
Andy says melted with Rice Krispies. Okay, tell us more, Andy.
Give me the recipe, Andy. All right, moving on then.
Share your recipe, Andy. All right. Before we can really get into a conversation about all of this today, I think first we need to understand, Tyler, what is or what are Tyler Tactics?
Yeah, Tyler Tactics. So I ended up starting Tyler Tactics. It was around September. For anyone that doesn't know me or hasn't been following me, I've been relatively active on LinkedIn for about the past year or so. Around last January, I started posting on LinkedIn every day, just my experiences in architecture, the challenges I was having, and then also what I was hearing from a lot of my conversations with other architects through my work at Monograph. Turned out architects are not alone in their challenges, right? Everyone's pretty much experiencing a lot of the same challenges. So after doing that for 7 or 8 months, I decided to launch just a weekly newsletter. So every Sunday morning, that's what Tyler Tactics is. Every Sunday morning, one quick and powerful tactic related to helping you communicate your unique value or attract high quality clients. So it's pretty heavily focused on business development tactics.
Yeah, I love that. And I started thinking about that, and you're an architect. You've been to architecture school. You've worked at some large firms. Notably, go look at Tyler's LinkedIn. You can see where he's worked. Some big firms, big notable firms, some small firms. Had your own firm. Now you're doing business development with Monograph, who's a friend of Entree Architect. We love Monograph around here, and Robert Ewan and the whole team over there.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things in the back of my mind is, what have you seen or experienced in throughout this? And you've taught in architecture school as well. I left that out, but what have you seen or experienced? And you sort of answered that already, but what was it that says I have to do this? I have to, whether it's the LinkedIn posts or the actual, now what it's evolved into, the Tyler Tactics.
Yeah.
But what's the catalyst that really drove it and said, I've got to do this?
I think it was the response, like, by everyone on LinkedIn. It didn't take long to be like writing out challenges I had experienced or challenges that I was hearing from other people that other people were catching on. And they were like, oh, I experienced that same thing. And then I would talk to my friends because, who are my friends? That's other architects. That's the only people that we're friends with, right? I mean,
yeah, that's right.
That's what Entree Architect is, right? So I was talking to my friends about, and I should say, mind you, I came to Monograph post like running my own little studio, right? So I basically learned development after what would have been nicer to learn it before. So I learned it after the fact, right? But talked with them about, do they experience these same challenges? Do you have an effective way to like run a conversation with a client? Do you do that? Have you systematized that? Do you have a consistent way of tackling that? And kind of everyone was like looking at me like I was crazy.
Yep.
Right. So that's when I was like, that's kind of when I decided I should probably take at least what I've learned in my business development role at Monograph and kind of apply that back to my own experiences in architecture and what other people are telling me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love the way serendipity works, but every month for Context and Clarity, we have our book club. And so we read a book every month. And then the last Friday of the month, we discuss that book. And one of our goals this year is to match up the authors in the books if we can. We can't always, not every author says, oh, yeah, I'd love to come on and talk to a community of small firm architects. But we're not doing too bad so far this year. next week on Thursday, so a week from today on Context and Clarity Live, we'll talk with Marcus Sheridan, who is the author of They Ask You Answer. And then that's our February book club book, They Ask You Answer. So we'll discuss that on Friday. And as you were just explaining that, it struck me that there's at least a portion of that, learning from other people, learning from other architects what they're struggling with. That's really a big part of the They Ask You Answer concept or business model. And so that's, it strikes me that it's not you sort of standing on the mountaintop saying, this is what I know, this is what I've learned. Some of it certainly is what you've learned, but I love the fact that it's become this community effort in a way.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just crowdsourcing the questions or the problems,
Yeah.
but it's
exactly
a pretty unique approach, I think.
What I completely underestimated in moving into a business development role at Monograph was the pulse that I would get on the industry from just having. I mean, I've had over 1,000 conversations with architects in the last year, right? So just having that many conversations with architects, you start you hear the themes over and over, and it becomes pretty clear the challenges that everyone's facing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we talked before we went live that we shape all of these weeks of Context and Clarity around the theme, sort of the Context and Clarity Live theme. And so we started Monday talking about clients, why do you work with the people that you do? And then Tuesday, assuming I'm one of those people, assuming I'm one of those clients, why should I hire you to design my project? And then yesterday, Wednesday, it was why do you charge what you do? And I noticed a lot of the client project fee theme going through many of your posts. And these obviously are not new problems. These are not new complaints. That's how they're often expressed, right? But I wondered, because we've, for decades, we've complained about a lot of these things. But I wondered, as we look into 2023 or deeper into 2023 and beyond, are these topics and these questions and these complaints, are they more important than ever based on where we are and where we're moving with technology? What do you think about the future of this versus the past of this?
I just think it's more important in general. Like, I think it should be important from the beginning. I think it's sad that we're arriving upon it now, that we need like some kind of potential economic crisis to get us to be thinking about these things, right? It's not being able to communicate your value and understanding what your value is, and understanding what your clients need, to me should be like among the top priorities in running your practice. Beyond what you're designing and beyond what you're building, is like those are kind of at the forefront.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. There's a firm that's been in the news quite a bit. I'm not going to name the firm because I'm not looking to bash anybody, but there's a firm that's been in the news a lot since Thanksgiving for a number of reasons. And one of the things, there was a recent interview in a publication, and I read through it, and I said to myself, it's like, you keep talking about the system, right? It's my version of what
they're a part of.
The system that they're a part of, and blaming the system. And what I see, right, from this side, and I don't know them at all, right? I've read articles and all of this, but I don't know these people. I don't know, I don't have an inside peek into the firm at all. But what I see is a firm that has not figured out how to work inside and outside of the box, maybe tweak the system, maybe push the walls in certain directions to accomplish the goals that they have. And that, you said, what about from the beginning? One of the things that they talk about is profitability. You've got to design your business to be profitable. It ought to be designed to, not saying you're going to be profitable day one, but it ought to be designed to be profitable. And A lot of us blame education. I teach pro practice. But we've got to learn these things, right? We've got to figure these things out in order to move the profession forward, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. We also can't think of profit as being like a bad term.
Right.
Which we do kind of have that, like, it's almost been framed to us as like an enemy, right? It's not about profit. It's about, the social good. It's about what you're doing, which it is, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be valued for that. So
I feel like we're supposed to just love what we do, and that's payment enough. And if you want more, then you're just asking for too much.
Right.
So the attitude I find, yes.
Seems like a rock song from the 50s or from the 60s or something like that.
It does. But yeah, I have a question that may be a really basic question, but we talk about values and knowing your value and what's your value, and you should know what it is. But I have actually, to be honest, when I'm hearing you say that, can you give me an example of values or what my value might be?
I think it depends on your clients. It depends on your market sector. It depends on what you want to focus on. It depends on what you care about too, right? So it kind of combines all of those things, but it's, who are your clients specifically? What outcome are they typically looking for? What's the thing that you tend to do really well that your clients get excited about? Is that always being on time and on budget? Is that the risk reduction that you have? Is that saving them money on materials? Is
no.
Is that keeping them out of jail? There's so much.
That's
there's
true.
so much value that architects offer.
Yeah,
right?
It's true.
But I just mean, like, you're reducing their risk. You're making a massively positive impact to their lifestyle, right? Whether you're doing residential or commercial work, these are places and spaces that people spend a ton of their time, and you're improving their wellness. That's going to have a direct impact on like their life and their livelihood. And that's a lot of value. It's hard to quantify, right? So that means, instead of leaving us to quantify it, what we typically do is kind of just like leave whatever our notion of like the market to quantify it, or we leave it to the client maybe a little bit to quantify it. And I think that's probably a bad move, and it's led to the kind of commoditization of the industry, right? And that's why everyone's competing for lower fees, which is not the direction we want to be heading as an industry.
Thank you.
You had a tactic the other day, maybe it was a while back, about transformation.
Yeah.
And I think that's really critical for us to understand. I use this, so those that have been around context and clarity for a while have heard this over and over and over, but I use this formula. It's a made up formula. It's P plus S equals R. Problem plus solution equals result. So your clients come with a problem. They call it a project, but it's a problem they're trying to solve. They're looking to you for a solution. It's the P plus S. But then what they really value is the result, not the built thing, right? The home or the pizza shop or whatever it is. It's whatever the result of that work is, what that allows them to do, which is basically what you're talking about when you're saying transformation. There's a project, that they come to you with, and you design something, but the transformation, the result, is what they actually value.
Yeah.
And I think in order to move the profession forward, we really have to focus more on that than the P and the S. Those will never go away. They have to be there in order to generate the R or the transformation. But I think when we're talking about the value, the unique value that you bring to your clients, to your work, et cetera, it's got to be about that transformation as you laid it out in that post a week or two ago.
Yeah. You call it results. I think I just call it outcome, but you have a client has a current situation and they have a desired outcome where they want to be. And that's not necessarily like the building. It's more like it's the lifestyle that's attached to that.
Exactly. Yeah. What does that allow me to do?
Right. What does that allow me to do? And ideally, like your value, right, is that if that client is the right fit for you, and if you're the right fit for that client, then you are positioning yourself as the perfect vehicle to get them from where they're at to that desired outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Why do you think this is so important? I mean, you said you started posting once
Yeah.
every weekday.
Yeah.
Now you're up to twice, 7 days a week. It's evolved into Tyler Tactics. You obviously think this is very important because you are generating lots of great content that is resonating. I mean, I'm looking at your numbers, and I don't know what your subscription numbers are, but I see the number of people that are following you on LinkedIn. It's over 14,000, I think, when I looked before. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people engaging with you around this.
Yeah.
So, why are people so interested, and why is this so important on February 16th, 2023?
Yeah. I mean, I think it relates to everything, right? So this is kind of goes back to the beginning, right? This idea that profit is important. It's not an enemy. It's something that helps everything. There's other parts of what I talk about on LinkedIn. I don't necessarily talk about them in my newsletter, but other parts of things that I talk about in LinkedIn in terms of challenges in the industry, like burnout, like low pay, like long hours, right? And these are huge contributing factors. And something that can definitely help to improve those things is if you have a profitable firm, right? If you have a profitable firm, you can increase your team's salaries, right? You can hopefully be more picky and choosy about what projects you bring in, right? Which is going to decrease the opportunity for burnout. You can pay for better benefits across your team. Everyone can work less, have more time with family, just have a better work-life balance, which is a huge challenge in the industry. So for me, it's kind of like it's the outcome again, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I want you to be able to bring in better clients, but I want that because I want you to, be able to have a better profit on those projects. I want you to have better relationships with those clients. We don't want to be pulling our hair out for specific clients. And I want you to be able to give that back to your team so that they can also have an improvement on their lives as well.
Yeah. It's funny. You just applied the concept to the profession,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think it's 100% true. Yeah.
Yeah. Burnout's something we've all been dealing with. And even though theoretically I would have agreed with you throughout my career, it hasn't been until context and clarity really that I decided to make a change in some way, not taking clients who were going to take time that I could be giving to my ideal clients and that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
it's harder to put into practice than,
Oh, it's super hard. Yeah.
yeah, because especially if you need the work, then you don't want to give up the work to get the better work. So then you could be stuck in that project for a couple of years, a year, 2 years. It's not a small thing. So
Yeah. Yeah.
What when we're looking at, you talked about the fact that you talked to 1,000 architects
Yeah.
last year. And Katharine, what you're bringing up, I think, well, I know is very common, right? The opportunity cost and all of the things that are associated with not focusing on our ideal clients, but also the reality and the fear. The reality is I've got to keep working, right? I need the work, and I've got lots of stories about this that most in this community have heard. And a lot of them revolve around making bad decisions, on my part, bad leadership on my part. So what are some of the most common struggles that you see right now, especially small firms? I know you're
Yeah.
talking to all different size firms, but for this small firm community, what are some of
Yeah.
the most common problems that you see?
I think it's mostly small. What's funny is that I should say, so that was through my work with Monograph, right? So I'm in a business development role at Monograph. I'm having conversations with firms that are, they're coming in because they're facing some kind of challenge in their practice, right?
Yeah,
so those
really
are challenges,
well-positioned
and
for
that's
this. Yeah.
and that's separate from. So I'm taking like those business development skills that I'm learning from doing that process, reapplying them back to, hey, architects can use this too for their clients. But so I wanted to frame that to say, the common challenges that I was hearing about all the time, that I still hear about all the time from small practices, right? Are things like just getting a hold on on how your team is performing, right? So like on budget spend, right? Where are our project budgets at? How many projects do we have? What are their statuses? How are we organizing them? If we have our kind of pipeline fall through right now, what's our revenue look like for the next 6 months, for the next 12 months? Right? It's usually somehow answered through a combination of spreadsheets, right? Through a combination of different time tracking tools, or maybe horizontal tools like Monday or Asana, trying to track, you're using like something to track tasks. You're using something different to track time. You're using something different to do accounting. And you're using a spreadsheet to try to like track budget, which, I mean, just saying that out, that's a lot. That's a lot to keep track of. And so usually what happens is because we're architects and we're terrible at prioritizing business. We're great at prioritizing design. So what happens? You push all of those admin things to the back. And then you actually have no idea where your projects are at. You find out after it's too late that you've spent more than what you budgeted for. And then you kind of just keep on repeating that process because you don't have a proactive system in place to make sure that it doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that struck me in that interview that I mentioned before was the comment that scope creep was destroying their profitability. I do not mean to make light of this firm and the situation, but it's like, yes, scope creep if you allow it and don't.
If you allow it, yeah.
If you allow it and don't charge for additional services, et cetera, it's not just going to eat your profit. It's going to destroy it, right?
Yeah.
There's
going to be no profit to eat. Yeah.
Exactly.
You're going to be feeding the monster.
Yeah. Anyway, if you want to know more about that, Magic Google Box knows all. You can find it really, really easily.
And then what is it after profit's all eaten up? Then what? Because it's going to be eating something after that, which is even scarier to think about what's beyond profit when you don't have
eating revenue at that point. I mean, it's just
right. And then you don't pay yourself, but you pay the people who work for you, or it's just it's not. Yeah, it's not pretty. That's why I don't have any teeth over here, because I decided to get my teeth pulled instead of fixed, so I could pay my employee.
Oh, I thought that was.
I don't even think he appreciates it. I broke my teeth eating all my profit. I'll look at it that way from now on. Because obviously that's what I did. Yeah. But I mean, it's like real consequences to doing stuff like that. And then you're right. Unless you have it all kind of charted out, it can come as a surprise.
Yeah. And it's not like this is where like Entre Architect is amazing, right? I mean, it's anyone that's already here, anyone that's listening to it, anyone that's in the Entre Architect community, I can tell you right now that you're in the top 10%. You're in the top 5% of firms, just from even acknowledging that it is an interest of yours, that it might be a challenge, and that it's something that you're focused or that you're thinking about working on. Like, you're already there. It's astounding to me the number of firms that I talk to that aren't really thinking about it. Yeah. So.
Well, and bringing it back around to, a lot of your focus, or at least that I have seen, is about communicating your unique value.
Yeah.
And so, my feeling on that is if you're doing it right, and you can tell us what that means, but if you're communicating your unique value and attracting your ideal clients and on down the line, that's the upstream that keeps you theoretically, hopefully, from these situations where you have clients that aren't willing to pay what you're worth, and you've got scope creep. There's a management issue there, but you've got scope creep eating into your profit or even your revenue, and all of those things. So when you are advising firms on communicating your unique value, where do you start that conversation?
Start with asking them probably like what their existing process is for qualifying clients, right? that's an easier place to start, because the harder conversation is like, how are you building your pipeline? Because it's usually that they're not, and they're just waiting for work to come in. Typically, right? So it's much easier to start with, okay, well, when something comes in, how do you process it? How do you handle it?
Yeah.
Right. And more often than not, it may not be super systematized, or it might be like a spreadsheet that they're using that's kind of a list of quantitative values, like if it's a commercial product, like what's the number of employees, like where's this location, how many square feet is this, so you're kind of like, someone's coming and you're asking them very quantitative questions. And so I think that's usually a red flag. It's not that information isn't important. You do want to know it in order to kind of be able to evaluate the project on your own. But first, you just have to start with the client themselves. Like, what is it they're looking to do? Because people don't just wake up one morning and decide, you know what I want to do? I want to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars on solving, on like just getting a new house, or on getting a new office because I want to. Like, that doesn't happen. Right?
Hashtag life goals.
Yeah. Right. So there's a struggle. They come to you because there's a struggle. Yep. There's a problem that they need to have solved, and they might not realize that that's what happened. Right. But that's what's happened, again, because you don't just like wake up one day and decide that you're going to take on a huge project and spend a bunch of money. Yeah. So the goal of that kind of qualification and discovery, I call it a discovery process, right, is to understand what brought them there, what challenges they're facing today, how is that impacting their day-to-day activities, and what would an ideal outcome to that be, right? And then, like, how would that then impact their ideal activities? Because you walk around, like, then that's what you've done. You've identified their current situation and their current pains. You've identified where they want to be. And just from that, as a general standpoint, you can identify whether or not they're a good, like, are you the vehicle that can get them from point A to point B?
Yeah. I like that. And I also like that you're really touching on emotional aspects. It's not just financial, or, hey, I need a permit set, or, I don't like dealing with the construction. It's dealing with the emotional aspect of what's the problem now? What does it feel like in the future once this problem has solved? Because we know from studies that's what people attach value to is the emotional aspects of it.
People do not make buying decisions with logic, right? No. That's why we all have that one thing that we spend money on and we don't really care, right? We buy it with feel. We buy it with emotion. Yep. So it's really important to understand the emotions that are behind, specifically like pain. It's really important to understand like what pains and what struggles they're having right now, so that you can offer that pain relief to them.
What's the one thing you'll illogically spend money on, Tyler? Because I have more than one, so I just want to hear what your one is.
What's the one thing I illogically spend money? Well, it's much less now. I have two young kids, so basically nothing. Right?
All right.
Probably toys.
The kids are eating into the profit.
Yeah. Yeah. If I could illogically spend money on something, like, it would probably be like a car.
To be honest, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did that this year.
Makes it
nice car.
Yeah.
It does. I love my car. Yep. But yeah, it is illogical because I just wanted that car, and it's like when people buy a house. I talk to people all the time about what they were looking for in a house, and then they just emotionally, it just speaks to them. They walked in, they knew it was the house. It didn't have most of the things they were looking for, but it just was like an emotional reaction. Yeah. Yep.
Well, that's an interesting point, though, right? Because I assume in that situation, they've made this list. We need to have this and that and the other. And then they walk into a house and they say, oh, this is the one. This feels like the one. And it becomes the one, I guess. So is there a way for us to take that scenario and apply it to how you deal with prospects and clients?
Like, be the one for them? Like, they just can't explain it, but they just have to hire you?
I guess.
That would be nice. Just irresistible to clients.
That's where I would say it's so much less about that result, right, that you were talking about, right? The foundation of good clients, right? I wrote a newsletter a few months ago that was kind of talking about we have this story that we tell ourselves that there's bad clients and there's good clients, right? And bad clients will always be bad clients, and good clients will always be good clients. When in reality, there's a reason, like there's something behind a bad client being a bad client. It's a lack of trust in you. It's a lack of respect for you. And that results from just a poor foundation of the relationship with you. That doesn't, like, that person. Now there are, there's edge cases where there's people that just always treat people poorly, right? And hopefully you don't get those clients. But usually, right, the foundation of that is that you didn't set up a good relationship to begin with, right? You didn't build rapport. You don't have an understanding of one another. You don't even know like what your hobbies are, the things that you care about. And I think those things really do matter. And that applies hugely to like that feeling that we're talking about, right? When you get in, you don't immediately start talking about, okay, so like, what's this project? What are you doing? Ideally you've done a little bit of research before they come in some way. And you kind of just spend the first few minutes like talking about life, like, hey, I saw you went to so-and-so like college. I went, I was a couple hours down the road there. Like, what did you think about that experience? Just have something, you gotta get everyone comfortable up front. It's almost like priming, right? You want to prime people up front so that they get comfortable, because that's also going to help you dive deeper into the conversation with them, like into that qualification and discovery process as well. You can't just like run right off to the gun and start asking them like deep questions, because they're not going to do it.
Right.
Oh, Dan Sullivan talks about the fact that what we're looking for in ideal clients or customers, or whatever industry you're in, whatever you call those people, what we're looking for is people that are like us, people that reflect our values, that we can align with. And when I heard him say that, it was such an epiphany moment, because that's true. I mean, we look at our clients and we say, okay, demographics and geographics and all that, but the psychographics, what do they believe? Can we align on beliefs and values and things like that? Because that ultimately helps us build that rapport, helps us build that relationship, and can get us through, let's face it, like not an easy process.
Right. Yeah, it's like part of the setting expectations thing, right? It's
right.
Like,
exactly.
This is not. There's going to be struggles in whatever this project, like no matter what, no matter who you choose. Just so you know, there's never been a perfect project. There's never been a perfect process.
Yeah.
So you definitely want to make sure that that you have some kind of understanding of how they respond to those things.
Right. Right. That's a good point. Chris says.
I was looking at Chris's thing there.
Yeah. If you're not putting your thoughts, your opinions, your design style out there consistently, then a client will never say they're the one about you. But if you do put yourself out there, and then there's the opportunity for those people to find you. I think that's a good point.
Yep. It's kind of like repelling the people who you don't want to be attracted to you.
That's true. Yeah. That's definitely an important part of that. I think there's another, I guess I do. I do agree with that. I just don't think it should be the only thing that you do.
Sure.
You shouldn't only put out your thoughts, your opinions, and your designs. I actually think what you're better off doing is putting out what your clients are saying about you and about the impact that you have had on them. Like that will just generally produce more volume for you, and probably like better volume, higher quality volume than you talking about yourself and why you're better.
Right.
Social proof is far more powerful than personal proof.
Right. Yeah. Nobody wants the, no offense to anybody, but nobody wants the street corner preacher, right? And they're with their megaphone talking about how great they are. Well, I guess the street corner preacher isn't doing that, but
talking about how great someone else is. But.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Jessica says that speaking of the illogical
Yeah, you're right,
purchases, I
Chris.
guess she's single-handedly keeping the fancy soap and candle industry alive over here.
Yeah, see, that's good, Jessica, because I don't spend money on those sorts of things, but I will spend money on antique jewelry, so I'm keeping them in business,
Well, the two
Candles
That's
of
are
very
them,
illogical.
insanely expensive though. They're like it's like $50 to get like a I don't know what you want to call it, like an organic
Candle.
personalized candle or something. It's
I got
which
one for
may I don't know,
Christmas.
maybe it's worth
I have
that,
it
but
right here, and it
there it
feels
is.
like it's like some kind of coconut oil greasiness
Mm.
that always gets on me, but smells good. But I got it as a gift, so I didn't actually. Yes, Jessica agrees that it's quite expensive,
Yeah.
but her house smells good.
hey, at least the house smells good.
There it
I
is.
mean, that's what it comes down
It's a
to,
lifestyle
That's the
change.
transformation
Yeah,
right there.
there it is.
right? Yeah. Well, I wanted to bring up how do you keep momentum up when you're kind of burned out and stressed and don't want to think about more work? You just want to finish what you have. And you should be marketing, you should be out there, but you don't.
Yeah.
How do you bring yourself to do that? That's my personal
I think
question.
it ideally it happens before you get to that point, right? So the
Right.
way that I think if I were to reframe that kind of question, it's like, what do I do to make sure that that doesn't happen? And
That would
to
be
me,
good.
that's making sure that you have a good idea of who you want to um, attract and who you want to push away, right? You kind of have I think I've heard people call it like a go or no go list. I can't think of the other word that I have for it.
Go, no go process.
Yeah. I have something else for it, but I can't think of what it is right now. Yeah. But so you have to be diligent about defining exactly who you want to work with and exactly who you don't want to work with, right? So if you're doing that, and if you're comfortable with saying no and saying, hey, I appreciate what you're looking to do here, but we're probably not going to be the best fit for you for these reasons. One, you're going to put good out there. You might refer them to other people who would then probably refer other people back to you for different fit for like other fits that aren't good for them, for example. But it starts there, in my opinion, right? Because then you're really only bringing in clients that that you're going to work well with and that you can trust and that trust you. And if you do that consistently, and if you know and trust because of the process that you have in place, based on what you're doing for marketing, based on what you're doing for your business development and building that pipeline, if that's consistent, and it has been consistent because you have those processes in place and you devote a few hours a week to maintaining them, right? Then you don't have to have that fear that that's going to dry up, right? Because that's consistent. You know that that's going to come in. And you don't have to be bringing in those projects that are like, I don't really want this, but we need the money. I think so. It starts before that. If you do define these processes, if you do get systems in place, and if you are diligent about making sure that you're only bringing on clients that you're confident are the right fit for you, then over time, like it shouldn't happen.
Okay.
Easier said than done.
Yeah.
Easier said than done.
Yeah. If you've already gotten to that point where everything's messed up, just sweep everything clean again and start with some clarity.
I don't know if you necessarily need to sweep everything clean again, right? But I would go back and say, okay, so like what process am I doing right now to define whether or not I should take on a client? And then maybe even specifically like look at your client list now and identify who it is that you don't enjoy working with. And I'd kind of like reverse engineer, like how did I get to the point where I chose to bring them in? And is there some kind of common theme that I'm seeing where like I probably shouldn't take on this type of work or these types of clients? So it takes analyzing. Like there's not a perfect system for everyone, right? There's not something you can just deploy and be like, all right, this is the silver bullet. If everyone does this, then you'll never reach that point. It really is like a custom solution to each person in each firm, depending on what their goals are and what they want to do.
Yeah. One thing I encourage people to do is make two lists. Make a list depending on how long you've been in business, et cetera. Make a list of your 5 best clients. that's subjective. You get to decide who those are, make a list of the 5 best, and then why they were the best, and then make a list of the 5, and this is where it gets a little bit dicey, the 5 worst, or whatever word you want to use in there, and why, and then compare and contrast those so that you can learn from those, and maybe it works into your go no go process or something like that. But yeah, I agree. I think it does take intentionality, and it does take analysis. And I'm not going to go into it, but many people in this community have heard some of the stories again from sitting down with the staff one day and saying, hey, here's 7 reasons that we should not take this project. But this was 2008 or 9-ish, when everything had started to crash. But I know that we're going to be looking at each other on Monday and going, what do you want to do if we don't take this project? So we took it on.
Yeah.
Right. Despite all of those red flags, all those 7 reasons or whatever it was, we took it on. Ended up being one of the most horrific experiences of my entire career and everybody else's. And, hindsight being 2020, what I would do today is say, okay, here's the 7 reasons that we're not taking this project. I know what it would take to onboard this and to get it started. So we're going to invest that. And everybody go out and shake the trees, so to speak, and find the next right project. We're gonna be intentional about just investing that time, those resources, instead of onboarding this to finding the right fit. And but again, hindsight being 2020.
Yeah. Well, we forget when we make that decision, Jeff, that you're talking about. I was like, well, we need the money. As that 80-20 rule, which tends to it never fails, right? So you're gonna have that bottom 20% of your clients that you like the least, taking up 80% of your energy.
Yep.
That's exactly how it's gonna pan out, and that just sucks. It just sucks.
Yeah. Pareto's principle in action.
Yes.
Right there.
Never fails.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I feel like people ignore their intuition on that. Like we were talking about the power-ups. Like I feel like there's a voice inside my head, at least, saying, you are not going to like this job. Do not take this job. And then I just override that and ignore it. And yeah, I'm sorry that I do that. I'd like to learn soon from my mistakes. I don't know when I'm going to learn, but.
And if you rely less on your feelings, right? So if you put it more, like actually have a checklist if you want, of like good and bad, and literally know what that number is. If there's 3 things checked off on bad or something, then I'm not going to do it. I don't care what it is. I'm not going to do it because I know it's not going to turn out well.
Yeah.
Then it makes it easier so that you don't actually have to kind of rely on that internal struggle, because that's exactly what's going to happen, right? You're going to get it. You're like, well, I don't really want it, but this fee wouldn't be too bad. Like I wouldn't mind having that. And that's the dangerous point right there. That's the dangerous point.
Yeah. That's where that systemization that you're talking about really comes in. As you said, it's, I've seen this play out in firms that I've worked with and firms that I've consulted with in the past where, let's say it's a medium size or a larger firm, and they've got their go, no go, very well defined go, no go process. And, they're checking boxes and they're ranking things and all that, because what happens is you have 10 people or whatever the number is that go into the conference room every Monday morning or whatever it is and go through all of the go, no go scores, and people are lobbying, right? They say, oh, we should take this, we should take that. And the logic has gone out the window, right? It's a friend of a friend, or it's a whatever. But when you have that process, it's like Blair Enns when he talks about you have this policy. I'm sorry, we have a policy. We can't do this.
Oh, it's such a brilliant strategy. Yeah.
It is. It absolutely is. You can do the same thing with a process like this.
Policy.
You may be saying that to yourself. Why not? You're a risk manager. Yeah, exactly.
Everyone understands insurance already, so why not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I just realized we're all the way at the top of the hour. I mean, we could keep this conversation going for a long time. It's a much needed conversation. So, Tyler, thanks a lot for bringing this to us, and thank you for what you're doing with Tyler's tips or Tyler tactics, I should say. I'll put that up on the. Oh, I think I just. Sorry. Got ahead of myself.
That you're doing it while you're talking at the same time.
Well, I do it while he's talking, and then he decides to do it, and then.
And frankly, I'm just not paying attention. That's what's going on. So, TylerTactics.com is the URL for that. Go sign up. Get the newsletter every Sunday morning. And I heard you say this on another interview, but you can read it Sunday if you want, or you can read it whatever day you want. But it's going to be about 5 minutes.
So true, yeah. I think I only get like maybe 30 or 40% that will read it on Sunday, and then the rest of them tend to read it on Monday morning, which is fine. You should be. Don't read a work email on Sunday.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't read my emails. Thanks, Catherine.
That'll get me to read it, of course, since you just told me not to. So that was a clever.
Make sure you hit your confirmation email. Huge issue.
There you go. Yeah,
I already did that. I did that already.
Confirmation.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Go get the Tyler Tactics newsletter so that you can learn and start to implement these things that Tyler talks about. Reach out to him on LinkedIn, and you see all of his posts a couple times a day, and you're going to learn a lot from Tyler. So thank you for this conversation, Tyler. It's been great. Really enjoyed it, and maybe we'll continue it at some point again. As we look forward to next week, as I said earlier, our guest for Context and Clarity Live next week will be Marcus Sheridan, who's the author of They Ask You Answer, which happens to be right here. This is what it looks like. They Ask You Answer. We'll discuss this book next Friday, but the day before we'll talk to the author, Marcus Sheridan. So join us for that next Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern. And then the new feature that we've rolled out for recently, I guess I should say, for the Entre Architect Network is the Context and Clarity Classroom. So in just a few minutes, I will post our worksheets for the classroom. It really covers everything that we've talked about this week. Download them, go through the questions, figure out how to apply what we've talked about this week to your business. And then if you want to go deeper, join me Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern, or which is the same as noon Pacific, inside the Context and Clarity Classroom, and we'll workshop all of these ideas and figure out a way together to apply them to your business. So the Context and Clarity Classroom is open. All right. With that, again, thanks, Tyler.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Great
to have you.
Thanks, Catherine. This community is awesome. Really, Jeff and Catherine, you're crushing it, but like everyone that's here, you're crushing it too. Like it's just you're doing the right things.
Yeah, that's a really great point. If you're here, you're already working on these things. So that's great encouragement for everybody out there. To all of you out there that are in the community and are watching either live or on a replay, thank you for this opportunity, because I say this all the time, but without you showing up every day for these conversations, we're nearly 700 conversations in at this point. Without you showing up, we would not have this opportunity to talk to Tyler. So selfishly, thanks for this opportunity. I appreciate you for that. With that, be well, stay safe, keep those around you safe and well. Take a little bit of time to breathe, relax, find some way to rejuvenate. We do this every day. You've got to pace yourself. It's a long journey. Thanks for going along it with me, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.